Greg Ehrenberg here with Adam Scherer and the NBA injury report, but I'm off the NBA injury report. I'm back in the mix, but same can't be said for a lot of these players in the NBA. Do us a favor as we're starting the show, like this video. Also, leave us a comment, and I'm going to change it up a little bit today. Do you guys think the Miami Heat game will play today? If it does, how many players from the Miami Heat do you think will be in the optimal lineup? Leave us a comment below. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Without further ado, we will dive into the injury report, once again, riddled with COVID situations, but starting with a player who's just regular injured, Malcolm Brogdon dealing with an Achilles injury. He's questionable to play. We've seen him miss the last couple of games. TJ McConnell's also out. Karis LeVert's become more expensive, but he's played a really big role for the Pacers. Do you think he's still worth paying up for if there's no Brogdon today?
As long as he's not getting much ownership, I think he's still pretty interesting at 9,100 on DraftKings. He's averaged 1.25 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played without Brogdon this year. He's likely to play north of 36 minutes, especially if Brogdon is out. So he still looks like a very high upside player. And the same can be said for Sabonis. On FanDuel, more favorable pricing, makes them even easier to get to. But Brogdon being out makes a huge difference, especially for Karis LeVert.
All right, now we get to start talking about some of this has become my favorite thing we do with some of these COVID-riddled teams where I just get to read off names for like a minute straight, because the Detroit Pistons, Jeremy Grant is out, Rodney McGruder out, Isaiah Livers is out, Corey Joseph is out, Trey Lyles is out, Kelly Olynyk's out, Killian Hayes is out, Isaiah Stewart's out, Josh Jackson's out, Cade Cunningham is out, Chris Smith is out, but whatever, he's on the injury report. Saban Lee is out. Shorthanded Detroit team. They also have basically anybody who typically puts up any kind of usage for this team not available. Who are the best value plays to look at from the Pistons?
So in terms of points per dollar, I think it's essentially whoever you get in the starting lineup that's cheap. That's probably going to be Luka Garza. He played about 20 minutes last game, but he also fouled out, so you could certainly see several more minutes there. Frank Jackson is relatively inexpensive at 5,300. He's likely to play mid-30s. Derek Walton started last game. He probably approaches 30 minutes as well at $3,400. The issue with him is he's about a half fantasy point per minute guy, so you really can't be too confident in the production you're getting, but he is really inexpensive. And then the guys that are a little bit more expensive, still probably a little bit underpriced, especially in the case of Amadou Diallo. You're probably going to get 36 plus minutes from him. He's going to take on a bigger role. He averages about a fantasy point per minute without Grant or Cunningham on the floor, and he has shooting guard, small forward eligibility on DraftKings. So this is a really interesting team because there's a lot of minutes available, but it's also just a lot of god-awful players that project well from a point per dollar standpoint, but in a lot of cases still aren't that likely to put up a score that you have to win. So on teams like this, ownership, even though guys project well, on a slate like this where there's a ton of good plays, ownership still plays a massive role.
The next team that's massively shorthanded, the Boston Celtics. It's been the case for a couple of games now. Josh Richardson is off the COVID list, but we've got Marcus Smart. He is questionable. He's dealing with an injury. That comes in addition to CJ Miles being out, Enes Kanter Freedom. I forget exactly how he wants his name to be said now. Somewhere Freedom's in the mix. Captain Freedom, Aaron Nesmith, Dennis Schroeder, Jason Tatum, Bruno Fernando are all out for Boston. If Marcus Smart ends up sitting, what could we expect from Boston? We saw a big game from Peyton Pritchard last time out. There's extra usage to go to Jaylen Brown, but these guys have been priced up.
Yeah, so with Tatum out, or with Tatum off the floor this year, I should say, Brown has about a 36% usage rate. He's likely to play a ton of minutes. He's very expensive, but the ceiling is certainly still there. If Marcus Smart is out, it has an impact on guys like Peyton Pritchard, who played 44.5 minutes last game. I don't think you necessarily get that much playing time from him. You do have Josh Richardson back. He probably cuts into the playing time a bit, but at 5K for a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy, Pritchard will still project as a good value if he starts. And then in the front court, not really impacted too much by Smart, but still by Tatum being out. Al Horford produces at a very high level without Jason Tatum on the floor. He's played 85 minutes alongside Brown without Tatum this year. He's averaged about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute. And he's just someone that he does everything well. So when you take someone like Jason Tatum off the floor, it's not unexpected that Horford steps up and produces at a higher rate.
Yeah, and then once again, we just have to see what happens with Marcus Smart. He's questionable. Non-COVID injury. I believe it's a cut on his hand that he's currently dealing with. The injury report is sponsored by Yahoo. We have a really good partnership with Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. If you guys are new to the platform, sign up using the link in the description box below. Head on over to Yahoo, make a deposit, enter a contest, and get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You get all the tools you need to win money basically across every single DFS sports out there, even the ones that I like esports that Alex crushes and I know nothing about. We've got tools for that as well on the site. So go check that out. Make your first deposit over Yahoo using the link below. Carrying on with the NBA injury report, another team that's shorthanded, the Miami Heat. Are they going to play today? That still remains to be seen, because right before we started the show, just so people are getting a little bit of a timeline of when we're recording, we record right at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, because that's when usually there's a pretty substantial NBA injury report update. And in that injury report, Okpala was ruled out for the Miami Heat. Now, that shouldn't seem like it matters, but the reason it does is because that currently gives the Heat only 7 active players. In order to play an NBA game, you need at least 8 active players. They signed Earl Clark earlier. He hasn't played in the NBA since 2015. So it's still very much up in the air if this game plays. But as of now, no Udonis Haslem, no Jimmy Butler, no Morris, no Strus, no Lowry, no Tucker, no Vincent, no Dedmon. And like I said before, Okpala's out. Tyler Hero is going to take up a whole bunch of usage if this game plays. Who else is going to do some damage for Miami?
Yeah, I mean, Hero looks great. He's going to need to play a ton of minutes. He's going to get a ton of opportunities. It's just a spot where even if he's inefficient, it's hard to see how he really ends up hurting you if this game plays. But you're also likely to get a bunch of run again from Yurtseven. He's cheap. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. Caleb Martin, very inexpensive on DraftKings at 3,900. Less inexpensive at 5,300 on FanDuel, but also getting less ownership there. He's going to need to play a ton. You've gotten 28 to 30 minutes from him in the last couple of games, but now you take out Butler and you take out Vincent. It's hard to imagine Martin's not playing close to 40 minutes. He's about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy, so he's not bad. Duncan Robinson's going to need to play a lot. Marcus Garrett kind of is the Miami equivalent of Walton from Detroit. I think he plays a lot. He's very, very cheap. He's also about a half fantasy point per minute guy this year, so keep your expectations in check. But anybody active for Miami who is in the player pool is going to be a viable option.
Yeah, and game in the comment section below, like I said at the top, guess how many players, assuming the game plays from the Miami Heat, will land in the optimal lineup. If you get the answer correct, EMAC will smile. EMAC 2024. You can't miss out on that kind of opportunity. Leave us a comment. How many players from Miami Heat land in the optimal lineup? Next COVID situation, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they are missing Derek Favors, Josh Giddey, Pokashevsky, Darius Baisley, Trey Mann, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. Also, there's a pretty good chance Mike Muscala ends up resting today, since this is a back-to-back situation. I rate Isaiah Roby really well as a value play right now. Do you think we could see extended minutes from him with all the players out for the Thunder in the front court?
Yeah, especially if Muscala sits. So basically what we saw yesterday was still a 3-man center rotation with Isaiah Roby, Mike Muscala, and Olivier Sarr. If Muscala sits, I think it's likely that you end up getting a 2-man rotation with Sarr and Roby. It would make both of those guys look pretty appealing. Roby, we know, is a decent fantasy producer when he's on the floor. And if Muscala rests, then it's likely you're getting, 26, maybe 28 minutes from Roby. Similarly, Sarr is 3,100 on DraftKings with small forward and power forward eligibility. So whereas Roby takes up a super valuable center spot, a little bit less opportunity cost getting to Sarr. And we don't really know. I mean, we don't know at all, really, what to expect from him in the NBA, but he's cheap. He has a path to minutes. Maybe he produces. I don't know. But kind of makes him interesting if Muscala sits as well.
The final team to go over tonight, the Phoenix Suns. They're pretty short in the front court. No Frank Kaminsky, no DeAndre Ayton. Jay Crowder also out. Abdel Nader also out. That's not going to have that much of an impact today. But there's kind of conflicting things here. Number one, they're shorthanded, so there does appear to be apparent value in the front court. But at the same time, too, they're playing a shorthanded Oklahoma City Thunder team that's also on the road for a tail end of a back-to-back. The Suns are favored by 15 points, which I believe is the biggest spread that we've seen this entire season. Does that impact any of the value plays that you like from Phoenix, and which guys do you like getting to?
It doesn't impact it too much. We talk a lot about not being overly concerned about taking guys from the favorite in a potential blowout. But especially in this case, when you look at what I think are the best plays from Phoenix, JaVale McGee at 5,100, even if McGee plays 22 minutes, he's likely to exceed that salary. He's averaged 1.29 DraftKings points per minute and about 21 and a half minutes per game in 9 total starts this year. But in 3 starts without Frank Kaminsky, he's averaged about 24 and a half minutes per game. That includes yesterday, where he only played about 22 minutes because he fouled out. I don't think, last game, not yesterday, but maybe people have a sour taste in their mouth because he was relatively disappointing last time out. I don't really think you should. This is a spot where he should go absolutely nuts for whatever minutes he's on the floor. He's still reasonably priced. There's a lot of good value on this slate where they're likely to put up a good point per dollar score, but they're not that likely to score enough raw points that you have to have them. JaVale McGee can absolutely bury you if you don't have him tonight. So I think McGee looks great. Jalen Smith has power forward eligibility on DraftKings. He played a few minutes alongside McGee in addition to all of the minutes that McGee did not play last game. I still don't really want to roster them together because I think that the Jalen Smith ceiling game involves, for one reason or another, JaVale McGee not getting full run. But in lineups where you don't have McGee, you can use a very cheap Jalen Smith, roster him at power forward where the opportunity cost is lower. He's someone that probably gets garbage time if this game blows out, so you could get there that way as well. I like both of those guys as values. And then, any of Booker, Paul, Johnson, Bridges, Payne are certainly viable plays as well, even though they don't look quite as strong as McGee and Jalen Smith.
That'll do it for the injury report today. Do us a favor, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave the comment. How many players from the Miami Heat, assuming the game plays, land in the optimal lineup today? If you get the right answer, you can get a free smile from EMAC 2024, future leader of the free world. Good luck today, guys.